Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode. Thank you for tuning in. Today, I want to talk about how do you actually get through tough times even stronger. So, there's a term in psychology that we use, which is post-traumatic growth. And what that means is when someone goes through a particular situation or an event where there is some kind of trauma, and let's just pause on this word trauma for a second and go into a little bit deeper. A lot of people are overusing the word trauma because when most people hear the word trauma, it's almost like this big thing that's happened in life. But what we can also equate trauma to, it could be some kind of injury. It could be a physical injury. It could be an emotional injury. It could be even a cognitive injury or even a spiritual injury. So trauma is something that's happened in someone's life that causes them to be injured in some way, shape, or form. But those injuries are very important for us as human beings to grow and to expand and actually get better. But there's a core difference between those individuals who actually get better, who actually grow, who have that post-traumatic growth, and those who do not. Those who get stuck with sometimes victim mentality, or those individuals who believe that they've gotten past the trauma, but it's still there in the back of their mind or inside their body somatically. So yes, our body can actually hold on to these injuries emotionally and physically as well. So what is that thing that actually gets people to be stronger after a challenge or a trauma or an injury? That one thing is the meaning that we give to the situation or the event. It's extremely powerful. So when we take a look at mindset, which I'm a huge supporter and proponent of, in fact, as I mentioned before, we've trademarked the term return on mindset. Mindset has a number of different factors, and we're anywhere between 38 to 45 different factors that we've been researching. And one of those factors is meaning. The meaning that we give to an event or situation or anything in our life. And this is what we do naturally. We give meaning to things. We give meaning to when we get a client or when we lose a client. Sometimes when we get a client, we create a meaning that, oh, this is going to be so awesome for our business. Or when we lose a client, it's, oh my God, my business is going to go down flush down the toilet. Or when we get into a scrap or a fight with your significant other, you could give it some kind of a meaning to say, oh my God, our relationship is over. Or you could give it a meaning that, hey, perhaps we're not on the same page here. How do we learn and grow together and actually get stronger as a couple? So every situation, we have the ability to make multiple different meanings. And the meanings that should be applied to situations, and I'm a huge supporter of this, because I do believe in an eternal optimism. That is the number one trait that I recommend everybody work on, is having a level of optimism that gets you through the tough times. It's not the same thing as positivity, because positivity, you could break your arm and be like, oh, that was great. No, that's not what I'm talking about. You could break your arm and be optimistic and be like, oh crap, I broke my arm. It hurts like heck, but I'm going to be okay at the end of the day. Okay, so that's the difference between positivity and optimism. And optimism is extremely powerful. So giving an optimistic meaning to a situation or an event or a trauma is what makes people even stronger. Now, there's interesting work that's been done. There's so many different studies that have been done when it comes to post-traumatic growth. But I want to share one particular study, which is it's a process that they call the adult attachment interview. And what they do is they actually take people through, so adults, through a process of asking them specific questions, which is an interview style. And based on those questions, they can determine what kind of attachment style that adult is likely to have. Now, if you're not familiar with attachment styles, they're very, very important when it comes to our intimate relationships. It pretty much determines, not in every situation, because it's a style, right? It's not black and white. It's not like a rock where it's set in stone. It is a style. So we are more likely to adapt a certain type of a style when it comes to our relationships and how we attach to other people. Some people avoid deeper relationships, which may be considered avoidant. Other people are more anxious, for example, where if someone is even at a distance or, their significant other is gone for a couple of days, they get really anxious. Oh, is that person, does that person still love me? I haven't heard from them for an entire day. They haven't texted me. What are they doing? So there's different styles of attachment, but here's the interesting thing that they've identified when it comes to the adult attachment interview is that it's not necessarily the trauma or the way they were raised from the perspective, perhaps they went through some real tough times. It was the meaning that they gave to how they were raised or those tough times. If a child was abused and grew up to be an adult, and that person did not give an optimistic or some kind of empowering meaning to that event, they're more likely to still remain a victim and be challenged by that particular event. But if someone actually went through those situations and through those tough times and gave it a more empowering meaning, they're likely to be more advanced and actually have some kind of growth as a result of that. So that is the most important thing here. If you want to get through tough times, if you want to help your teams or your team get through tough times, again, this applies to organizations and your executive teams and your sales teams or whatever teams you have, you got to help them create an empowering meaning to the situation or the event. And that's what creates what we call a champion mindset.